Good morning. Hola y buenos días. Yo soy Kevin Muñoz, vocero de la campaña Harris-Walz. I'm Kevin Muñoz, senior spokesman for the Harris-Walz campaign. I am incredibly honored to be joined today with some of the bravest people I've had the honor to meet. These kids and their parents are here to tell their stories, the unimaginable horror stories their families faced at the hands of Donald Trump when he cruelly and systematically ripped away mothers and fathers from their children. I'm in awe of their courage and their resilience to share their stories today, and I trust all of you will treat them with the dignity and respect that they deserve. It should fill all of our hearts here to see them reunited with their families today. But I want to be very clear. The unforgivable practice of family separation, championed by the Republican running for president, Donald Trump, should have never happened in the United States of America, and it can never happen again. Vice President Harris knows she will always keep families together. So tonight, Trump is going to show up at a town hall with Latino voters right here in Doral. He will pretend he cares about our families. But the stories you will hear today remind you just how far from the truth that is. If Trump gets the chance again, he will be more dangerous. So joining me today is Congresswoman and campaign co-chair, Congresswoman Veronica Escobar. She knows better than most what a champion Vice President Harris is for our communities, and she has seen firsthand the threat that Donald Trump poses. Following today's remarks, the Congresswoman and myself will take some questions, but with that, I will hand it to our first speaker, Billy. Billy?
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to thank everybody that made this possible. I'm very glad to have this opportunity. I'm here to tell my story because it's something that we suffered through and something that a lot of people have actually forgotten about. And I think that's something very important in this decision that we're going to make to our future in this country. In 2018, I came to the United States as a 9-year-old with my dad here. We didn't know that we were going to suffer the pain that we did. We thought we had a better future planned ahead of us coming to this country because all we heard was good things about it. America is free. You had a lot of choices. You can make a better life. That's all you hear about it. And now I am gladly to say that I have realized that some of those things are true. But during the Trump administration in 2018, I suffered a lot of trauma. I came into the United States in 2018, and when I first got to the immigration centers, I was being held there for 3 days. I was held in a place called La Hilera, which is a cold room, about 54, 55 degrees, and I had no bed sheets, no bed, no nothing. And after those 3 days, I was lied to. I was told that my dad was going to court and I would get to see him the next day. After that day, I never saw him again for 40 days. I was flown out to New York, and then I was introduced to someone new, someone in foster care that said that they were going to be my new family. They told me that I wasn't going to get to see my dad again and that I wasn't going to be able to see my family again. As a 9-year-old, you can probably imagine how that felt. Great sadness in front of me and very traumatic, something that I still hold to this day. The emptiness that I felt when they told me that I wasn't going to be able to see my family again was something out of this world, and something that no kid should go through. During those 40 days, I slept cold nights. I had no covers with me, and the person that was there tried to help me, but she couldn't do much. She was an older woman, and so she didn't have the resources to keep me and all the 4 or 5 other kids that she had with her. After 40 days of suffering and pain, not being able to talk to my dad, I was finally taken back to Arizona where he's being held, hours away from me. And after that, 3 days, I was held in a room where I could see him through a glass window. I could not talk with him. I could not hug him. I couldn't do anything but see him. After those 3 days, I finally got to point him out to an officer. And the officer said, "Who is your dad?" And to be honest, that was the best that I had ever been treated by an officer. He told me that he was happy that me and my dad were together. And that was the nicest someone had ever treated me in that time. other officers have told me that I wasn't anything, that I wasn't worth anything, and that I shouldn't have came here to begin with, and that I was never going to get to see my family again. So that felt good in that moment of sadness and pain. After I went and ran to my dad, I hugged him and I told him I did not want this to happen ever again. And he promised me that he would not ever leave me again. And after that, we still fear. I go to therapists, but I still have the fear of Trump being reelected and that same thing happening to me or other kids ever again. Kamala Harris helped us be together again, and she helped us be a family again. And I don't want this to happen to any more kids. I was separated, and a lot more kids were separated too. I saw people with fear, with sadness, a lot of them. I felt pity because I couldn't do anything. And now I'm in a position where I can give my speech and do something about that, and I'm really glad that I have the opportunity to do so. And I am very thankful that I am here, and I want to thank everybody for hearing me out. And with that, I introduce the next person.
Hi, I'm Janice Adriana, and I'm here to tell my story. So when I was 6 years old, me and my mom decided to come to the USA to see my dad again. But then the migration officials held us in this place that's called La Hielera, which means ice box, and it's really cold in there, and we couldn't use bed or nothing. It was just empty. And after that, they told us that they were gonna separate me and my mom, and that's when everything bad started to happen. I started crying. Me and Mama started crying because we thought we were never gonna see each other again. And then they took her away from me, and after that, I had to stay in this foster care for a week. And I asked them plenty of times when I was going to see my mom again, and they told me I was going to see her soon, but it never happened. After that, they took me to my dad and I stayed here with him for about 2 months, and I was feeling a little bit better because I was out of the foster care and at least I was with my dad. But then they deported him to Honduras, and I had nobody with me. Only my aunt, which I had to stay with her for 3 years. I couldn't see my mom for those whole 3 years, which was really sad for me because I thought I wasn't going to see her more than that. But then Kamala Harris helped me and my parents get together again. And now me and my parents are happily living together, and I don't want Donald Trump to be president again because I don't want other kids to go through what I did. And then I'll walk on the other people.
I'm a Christian, and I'm 12, and this is my brother Hamilton, and he's 13.
I'm here today to talk about my story of my separation. We were in 2018. I was 7. My brother was 5 or 6. They got us. The immigration got us. They took us to this place, and then they just gave us only 10 for us to sleep, like blankets. And then 6 more days later, they told us to take a shower and put on some uniforms, and then told us that we were going to be separated. And then we started to cry. And then they took us. We flew to New York, and then we didn't really know what was happening. If we're going to see our mother again. The lady was mean. She wouldn't let us eat in the kitchen. She just bring the food to the room that we would sleep, and they would take us to the park, but to try to have fun, but we weren't having fun. We were having our mind with our mom, and the lady taught us to speak Spanish, and we lost our own language in Guatemala, Campopal. We lost it, and right now, so we got back with the mother. We saw her, we hugged her, we were crying, and then we started to laugh for a few moments.
I don't want this to happen to other kids, and it's sad to see if it's going to happen again.
Good morning. My name is Verónica Escobar. Buenos días. Me llamo Verónica Escobar. Yo represento la comunidad de El Paso, Texas, en el Congreso, donde empezó este plan de Donald Trump para separar a familias, separar niños chiquitos de sus mamás y sus papás. I get to represent the incredible, beautiful community of El Paso, Texas in Congress. My name is Verónica Escobar. I'm a national co-chair for the Harris-Walz campaign. And El Paso, Texas was where Donald Trump began his horrific policy of separating families, separating children as young as the kids you just heard from their parents. We are having this press conference because we want Americans to remember what Donald Trump did, not just at the border, but what he did to our country. We know that our immigration system is broken, and I can tell you, as a resident of the border, no one knows more that our immigration system is broken than those of us who live on the U.S.-Mexico border and who've been working for immigration reform for decades. But what Donald Trump presents are not solutions. Donald Trump doesn't bring policy ideas to the table. Donald Trump did not fix a broken system. In fact, what Donald Trump did was take a broken system and he obliterated it. He uses cruelty as American public policy. He dehumanizes immigrants. He calls immigrants by the most vile insults, the most offensive names, using deeply racist, ugly attacks. Not once will you hear Donald Trump talking about how we should reform our outdated immigration laws. And let me tell you, what we heard from these courageous young people, these kids who have lived through horrific trauma, through the pain of being separated from their parents, what you heard from them moments ago will be far worse if Trump gets a second term. In Donald Trump's first term, he had people around him who actually tried to stop him. There were people around him who tried to create guardrails. Well, guess what? In a second term, not only will those guardrails not exist, but those people who were there to stop him in the first place are long gone. And many of them have endorsed Kamala Harris for president. We know that without guardrails, Donald Trump will ruin this country. And all we have to do is look at what he's promising through Donald Trump's Project 2025. So, you know, I will tell you, I hear a lot of Latinos who say that they want to vote for Donald Trump, that they appreciate some of his policies. Let's talk about his immigration policies in Donald Trump's Project 2025. He has talked about mass deportations and Forget that he hasn't even bothered to talk about how he would fund it. Forget that he hasn't talked about the impact on our national economy. But for those of you watching at home, Donald Trump's Project 2025 isn't just about deporting undocumented immigrants. That plan lays out very clearly that the intention is to deport legal immigrants as well, and TPS and other programs, and DACA for dreamers. And let's not forget that in Donald Trump's first term, Stephen Miller, who is still a part of the Donald Trump apparatus, bragged about beginning a denaturalization program. So for Latinos who think that when Donald Trump insults immigrants or when he talks about mass deportation, that you're thinking he's talking about somebody else, oh, no, no. He's talking about you. So not only can this happen again, these horrors and the inhumanity and the indignities committed against vulnerable human beings, especially children, but he has doubled down, and it will be far worse. Again, no one is disputing that our immigration system needs to be reformed. And in fact, you heard Vice President Kamala Harris lay out her vision for what comprehensive immigration reform would look like and should look like when she's in the White House. She is a leader who focuses on solutions, who recognizes what needs to be done, who is willing to work across the aisle, bringing people together so that we don't just address our nation's challenges, but that we see the opportunity that lies before us. That's the kind of leader she is. That's the kind of leader America needs. I applaud these incredible families and their courage, and I thank you for everything that you are doing to sound the alarm to the United States of America and tell us that we can live up to our values. Thank you. Sí, cómo no. What do you think? Should I do the Spanish and then? Déjeme primeramente hablar sobre todo esto en español. Sabemos que Donald Trump no nos presenta con soluciones. Durante su tiempo en la Casa Blanca, Donald Trump usó crueldad para implementar sus pólizas que eran anti-inmigrante. Él no quiere resolver esta pregunta enfrente de nosotros sobre cómo vamos a reformar nuestras leyes migratorias. Él solamente quiere implementar crueldad. El modo que habla de inmigrantes es un modo tan ofensivo, pero su plan, cada uno de nosotros tenemos que ver lo que quiere hacer con su plan, el Proyecto 2025. No solamente quiere deportar inmigrantes indocumentados, nos ha dicho que quiere deportar inmigrantes legales. Stephen Miller empezó un programa para quitarle la ciudadanía a la gente en este país que está aquí legalmente. Han dicho que quieren eliminar TPS, que quieren deportar Dreamers. Esto es anti-americano. El valor de estas familias, ahora que están enfrente de nosotros diciéndonos que no podemos regresar a un tiempo tan oscuro y feo, especialmente cuando tenemos una líder en Kamala Harris con soluciones que quiere avanzar este país y que no nos quiere dividir. Quiere unirnos para mejorar el país y estos Estados Unidos.
Acaba de decir que el sistema de inmigración está roto, pero la administración Biden ha estado allí 4 años y a cargo de la frontera ha estado la vicepresidenta. Entonces, ¿cuáles son esas propuestas que van a ser diferentes? Y porque
And I'll answer this in English as well. Her question, primero en español, but her question is, what are Vice President Harris's plans specifically, and why hasn't there been immigration reform during the Biden-Harris administration these last 4 years? Y quiero primeramente decir, la vicepresidente no estaba en cargo de la frontera. Yo vengo de la frontera. Yo soy miembro del Congreso. Ella trabajó con los países en Centroamérica. Esta cosa de borders are es algo que los republicanos inventaron, ¿ok? Primeramente. Pero también quiero hablar sobre los pasados 10 años y cuál partido era el partido que no quiso reformar nuestras leyes migratorias. En 2013, el Senado pasó una ley bipartidista que avanzó recursos para la frontera, para seguridad en la frontera y también cambios, reforme a las leyes migratorias. Cuando llegó esa ley, que pasó en el Senado, empezó en el Senado, cuando llegó en la Cámara de Representantes en 2013, la Cámara de Representantes estaba controlada por los republicanos, John Boehner, el speaker. Ellos no quisieron tomar esa ley para un voto y ahí se murió el esfuerzo. En 2018, otra vez, pero esta vez en la Cámara de Representantes, un plan bipartidista. ¿Cuál partido no quiso votar en el esfuerzo? El Partido Republicano. Este año mismo, 2024, el Senado en un modo bipartidista. Y es esta ley en que trabajó Chris Murphy, John Langford, Kirsten Sinema, no fue de reforma migratoria, solamente fue póliza para tener seguridad en la frontera. ¿Quién dijo que no quería que el Senado tomara esa ley? Donald Trump. Entonces, al fin tenemos que decir que, I'm getting there. Pero tenemos que ser honestos. ¿Cuál partido no quiere reformar nuestras leyes? El Partido Republicano con su líder, Donald Trump. Pero a su punto, por eso estamos diciendo, necesitamos demócratas en cada oficina, porque la persona en la Casa Blanca no solamente tiene el poder, no puede cambiar las leyes, es trabajo del Congreso y por eso necesitamos elegir demócratas. So, a couple quick points. When we talk about the failure with regard to immigration reform, let's have some context over the last decade, okay? 2013, the United States Senate, in a bipartisan manner, passed comprehensive immigration reform. I want you to remember some of the Republicans who voted for it, who were championing it, okay? Some from this state. It went over to the House of Representatives, and guess who stopped it? The Freedom Caucus, or back then they were the Tea Party Caucus. They threatened Speaker John Boehner, and he refused to bring it up for a vote, and it died. 2018, in the House, representative from California, my colleague Pete Aguilar, and my former neighbor in Texas 23, Republican Will Hurd, came together, and it was border security and Dreamers. They narrowed it down. Guess who stood in the way? It was the Republican Party. In 2024, Republicans got everything they wanted in a border-only bill written by John Langford, one of the most conservative members of the United States Senate. Guess who stopped it? Donald Trump. So when we talk about the failure to pass comprehensive immigration reform, It is critically important that we are honest with the American people and point to exactly the party that stands in the way, and it's the Republican Party. But Vice President Harris laid out her vision, which included border security. It included a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, an earned legal pathway for people who've been here for over a decade. Looks a lot like a bipartisan bill that I have the privilege of being co-author and co-sponsor of, the Dignity Act of 2023. But this is also on Congress, which is why we've been saying we have to elect Democrats up and down the ballot, people who are willing to vote for comprehensive immigration reform. It is not solely up to the executive. We need a Congress willing to do it. And then
we're going to take a few questions, so if you can raise your hand and say your outlet. Yep.
Yeah. Cristian Benavides from CBS News. Just two questions. The first one would be, under argument that if Democrats are elected, they would pass immigration reform. What about in 2008 when the Obama administration held all three branches of government and there was no immigration? So what do you say to that argument? And then the second thing is, why do you think it is that Democrats are consistently, according to polls, according to voting data, losing parts of the Latino vote?
So I was not in Congress during the Obama administration. Was not.
It still goes to the argument that if Democrats
Yep. No.
immigration reform,
And I will tell you that is why I worked on a bipartisan comprehensive immigration reform bill, because we have to find a pathway through compromise. You look at when Republicans had the White House and had the Senate and the House under the Trump administration. Same thing goes for them. We have to elect people willing to compromise on this very challenging issue. That's why, as a progressive Democrat, I worked with a Republican to craft a compromise. And I think that is the path forward. Our country needs it because, frankly, we need immigrants. Immigrants are good for this country. Kamala Harris recognizes the economic benefit of immigration reform, because immigration reform isn't just about reforming outdated laws, it's about lifting up our economy. So I think the only way forward is bipartisan. I will also tell you, and I'll let Kevin also speak to the issue of Latinos in this country. The vice president is gaining ground, and we are moving in the right direction. I will tell you, as someone who no longer believes in polling, but someone who has been to battleground states, I've been to Arizona, I've been to Nevada, I've been to Wisconsin, I've been to Pennsylvania, headed to Georgia next after this. We are not taking Latinos for granted. And we are going to their doors. We are talking with Latinos. We are listening. We know Latinos are not a monolith. Florida Latinos are not like Texas Latinos, not like California Latinos. And so it is a state-by-state effort. The race isn't over. We are still doing everything we can to run through that tape and meet people where they are. The Latino vote will decide this election. I know that with every fiber of my being, and we are reaching out to each and every one of them. Kevin, anything you want to add?
I would just add the campaign understands, I think, the diversity of the community and the understanding that this is not a community that we can go and speak to in the last 3 weeks of the election. And when you look at what the vice president has done, to conclude, the largest and the earliest investments into Hispanic media, when you look at our communities representing Venezuelans, talking to Venezuelans, Mexicanos, talking to other Mexicans, these are the types of things that matter to our community that want this to be a localized approach. We've seen some polling having us at our 2020 levels. We have some that we show that we need to do more work. And that's exactly what these last 20 days are. And it's really important when we're talking about today, right? We've got an incredibly brave group of individuals talking about their story and the threat that Donald Trump poses to Latino communities everywhere. And then you got Donald Trump. Whatever he says to me, it's a lie. It's divorced from reality. And we do have to cement that contrast. Let's do a couple more questions. You in the back?
Anticipating kind of what the former president might say tonight, and asked whether he supports bringing back this policy. Do you think he's going to be truthful? He's spoken about this
What we have seen Donald Trump do is evade certain questions and lie about others. So he has tried to distance himself from Project 2025. Evidence has shown over and over again how closely linked he is to Project 2025. And it's my hope that reporters at the town hall, he will be pinned down and forced to answer for what he did to these families. Again, no one disputes we need to reform our outdated immigration laws. But I want people to remember not just what these courageous kids have shared with us, but I want us to remember that audio when the United States, people all over the country were shocked to hear crying children who had been ripped from the arms of their parents. Donald Trump did that. Is he okay with that? Will he do it again? We know in some cases he's doubled down on it, depending on the audience. This is a Latino audience, and he needs to own his words, own his policies. Do I think he'll lie? When he breathes, he lies.
And Carlos, if I can add, he's been asked, J.D. Vance has been asked, they've been asked several times, well, how they feel about this issue. It's a clear yes or no. They can't give an answer, and that should tell you everything about their position on family separation. Let's take a couple more.
Question for Billy. How old are you now, and where did you come from?
I'm 16.
16 now?
Guatemala.
And from Guatemala?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We'll keep questions here. Did you have a question?
Yes, Ana Pueblo de Telemundo. The rhetoric from the Republican Party for Latinos in this county about socialism and freedom seems to really be working, as polling shows. How do you respond to that? En español,
Hay un partido que apoya y defiende nuestra libertad, y es el Partido Demócrata. Hay solamente un candidato corriendo por presidente que apoya nuestra libertad y va a defender nuestra libertad, y es Kamala Harris. La diferencia es muy clara y muy obvia. Kamala Harris quiere trabajar para avanzar nuestras familias, avanzar nuestra economía. Donald Trump, si él tiene la oportunidad, economistas nos han dicho que nuestros impuestos van a subir bajo Donald Trump, que el plan de él va a destruir nuestra economía. Y tenemos también que ver cómo habla cuando habla de inmigrantes. Está hablando de los inmigrantes en este país como venezolanos y como cubanos y otros grupos cuando nos insulta. Kamala Harris no nos insulta. Ella viene con soluciones para reformar nuestras leyes y asegurar que cada persona en este país tenga oportunidad. Pero también tenemos que ver cómo han tratado a las mujeres, el Partido Republicano. Nos han quitado nuestra libertad. No podemos hacer, en el estado mío de Texas y otros estados, las mujeres no tienen derecho de hacer decisiones sobre nuestro futuro. Y hay mujeres en el estado mío que no han podido recibir el cuidado de salud, que ya no pueden tener hijos por lo que hizo Donald Trump en quitarnos esas opciones y nuestra libertad.
Just got to add to that, though. Let's talk about freedom. Let's talk about what dictators support and what people like Kamala Harris support, which is the ability to make your own healthcare decisions. Only Donald Trump is telling you what you can and cannot do with your body. Only Donald Trump and people like Ron DeSantis are telling you what you can and cannot do in school, what you can read or not. And only Donald Trump has said he supports Putin. Only Donald Trump has said that he supports people like Kim Jong-un, the most loathsome dictators across the world. And so we have to make that choice evident in places like Miami-Dade. Let's take two more questions.
And he said he wants to be a dictator.
And he wants to be a dictator on day one. Think about enemy within, what he said this Sunday. These are not the words of a democratically elected official.
Do any of the families speak Spanish better than the Spanish-speaking audiences?
Sí, por favor, después. Después. Sí. Okay. Any more questions?
Why do you think Latino voters are attracted to Donald Trump despite these anti-immigrant immigration and immigrant rhetoric? What do you think? What is the Harris campaign doing to tackle that?
I'll add, and I think we talked about this a little bit, but Latinos are a very diverse community, and they're a community that deserve to hear from campaigns early and often, and through every mechanism that they really consume their news. And when you think about the issues that the Vice President is focusing on, she's investing historic amounts into small businesses. She is investing to lower prescription drug costs, lower the cost of housing, a huge issue here in Miami-Dade. She is fighting for your freedoms and the freedom to make your own healthcare decision, the freedom to stay safe from gun violence in your communities, a situation that the Congresswoman knows all too well disproportionately impacts Latinos. We are making that case, but we are making that case through WhatsApp, through paid media, on radio, through door-to-door knocking, but it is going to take time in the climate that we are in. And so some polls will show us at our 2020 levels. Some polls will show us that we have a little bit more work to do, but that's what campaigns are about. And, I would say that this is, not just a choice between Trump and Kamala Harris, but making sure that we turn out those voters and drive home the stakes.
And just a quick follow to that. What do you think the attraction is to Latino voters to Mr. Trump? They've made some serious headway in gaining support from Latino voters. What do you think the attraction is?
I think it's really important that we continue to talk about the Vice President and her agenda, and also the issues that matter, especially in some of our battlegrounds. What looks like a resident policy here in Miami-Dade might look different than what, the Congresswoman sees in Atlanta later today. And so we have to continue to communicate this issue in a diverse way and really aggressively across every medium Latinos are consuming their information. All right, well, we are around for a few more minutes.
Kids and ages, please, just for logistical purposes.
Yes.
Someone can say them onto the mic with the name and the age of the child that wants to.
For privacy reasons, we're going to just take that offline. Okay? So, yep. Thank you. All right, thank you guys. And we're around for a few seconds, too.